Welcome to the All Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Steve Inman, joined as always by co-host and producer to the stars, Chris Brito. We have an amazing episode for you here today. The Knicks have made the first major move of the summer, acquiring Mikal Bridges from the Nets for 5 first-round picks, a pick swap, and Bojan Bogdanovic. We also have the NBA draft on the horizon here. So, Chris, best time of the year. We are here. The Knicks are making moves. How are you?
Hey Steve, it's impossible to not be ecstatic over what the Knicks just did last night. In the dead of the night, the the Knicks figured out how to improve this roster while maintaining some level of all like maintaining really all of their guys, at least the ones that they plan for their immediate contending future. It looks like the team still wants to re-sign OG Anunoby. We all thought maybe Bridges was going to be something in response to them not signing OG, but I love the deal. I mean, draft picks are draft picks. They are a commodity, but they are a risk no matter how you look at them. Like, we expect the Knicks to be good for as long as Brunson is here. So I don't anticipate those picks being really lottery picks. That being said, the the flip side of it all is that the Knicks did overpay for a non-all-star. And I think that's something that has plagued the team in the past. But it's a new a front office that has shown that they've known how to operate with under the cap, and even with financial constraints, they've been able to do a lot of different things, a lot of smart things, which is not something you've been able to say about this Knicks front office in the past. Just to put it all together, Bridges is an ultimate compliment to this team. He also adds another dimension, another defender that could get at Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, the NBA champion Boston Celtics. I think one of the biggest things that we learned about the NBA Finals and the Celtics is that, defensive, malleability is probably the most important um, strategy in the playoffs. You're just showing guys who can guard like multiple positions. And I think the Knicks put themselves in a position to have a team like that, you know, and
Yeah,
and by proxy, adding someone like Bridges like makes your bench that much stronger too. You have DiVincenzo off the
absolutely.
bench, like
It's
insane.
wings on wings on wings. This is how the Boston Celtics were built. You're now trying to go up against them. It's Mikal Bridge, and we're talking about the cap, right? Like, can they make an OG and an Obi work? I mean, Bridges only makes 23 million a year, 23 this year, the upcoming year, 25, and the final year of his deal. So 2 more years, around 48 million left on his contract. Remember, if that was a contract the Suns at the time didn't even really want to give him. Think about how much the NBA landscape has changed, whereas this is now one of the bigger bargains in the NBA. And they didn't want to give him that deal. Remember that. So here we are. You have all four Nova Knicks now. It's like Thanos with the Infinity Stones, just like you just collecting them. And they're ready to go. Go get OG Anunoby back. You have a sick bench with DiVincenzo, with Josh Hart. It'll make it really hard for Tom Thibodeau to play these guys 42 minutes a game in the regular season because there's just so much depth here now. They have just a loaded team, and you got to give Leon Rose and this front office credit. They're not going to give themselves credit because they don't speak. For all we know, they don't even exist. But somebody's behind the strings here making all these crazy moves. So you got to give Leon and his team, in all seriousness, some credit here because this is incredible. Um, and it's to me the biggest high risk, high reward move that they've made because if they win it, who cares about these picks? As you said, like who cares? Like you, but if they don't win it, and then Leon Rose is gone in 5 years, 2029, you might be talking about like giving up the first overall pick. 2031 could be just the same to the team in your city, and so it reminds me a little bit of that Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett swap where like everyone loved it from one side and it turned complete opposite but at the same time, Mikal Bridges is not 38 years old. He's going to be 28 in August. So like, there's plenty of room to run here. It's gonna be a multiple year run with the power of friendship.
The power of friendship. I think that's the other thing that the Knicks front office have built this team off like chemistry and like guys that have played with each other and like not gone the traditional
Yeah.
or unsuccessful superstar route. Like they got Brunson, who wasn't even a starter really for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
You got Dante DiVincenzo, who, was essentially relegated to the bench of the Kings.
13 million a year.
At
I
13
mean,
million a year.
just look at like a year later, Malik Monk, who I like DiVincenzo as well as like as much as Malik Monk, right? Like those are to me very similar overall players. Malik Monk just got 78 million and a year later,
Yeah.
like
I mean,
DiVincenzo's on a
this
great deal. You know, you got
this
Josh Hart.
this front office, I mean Leon, whoever else in there is deserves all the who cares if they speak to the media? I don't really care. As long,
I mean, it's weird. It's definitely weird, but at the same time, if you're winning, who cares? Like it doesn't matter. Like none of it matters if you're winning. And we just have never seen that. So you're just focused on like the Dolan stuff and like why are they afraid of the media? And instead now it's hey, you have another all-star caliber wing in Bridges. You're gonna try now. Here comes the interesting part, Chris. Can Dolan, for really the first time in his ownership with the Knicks, can he go out there and just spend the luxury tax? Like I understand he's done that before, but not to this level. Like you're talking about Brunson, who's due a big contract. Randall makes 30 million. Um, Bridges, yes, 23 million is not much in the NBA, but it's still $23 million.
yeah,
You're gonna wind if you bring Hartenstein back, which we'll talk about. You're talking about him and Mitch making 40 million. OG Anunoby might make 40 million. So it's just so much money. So you're gonna have to pay a ton of tax. And if he's willing to do it, which it sounds like there's no indication that he's not right now, you're gonna have to give him a ton of credit too, because if they're all in, they can't be all in without him. And he's really an important part of how they're going to try to build this thing this summer.
what a difference 5 years can make.
So Chris, OG Anunoby, Isaiah Hartenstein, Precious Achua, those are probably the three big ones. Obviously, the first two are a lot bigger than the third one. How do you see the Knicks free agency with their own guys playing out?
You know, so my initial instinct is that they're going to do everything possible to get OG. I mean, I think he's a very important part of the puzzle, but Hardenstein, I don't know why, but I have a good feeling that the Knicks are going to be able to get him back.
Okay.
It's not based on anything that I saw, but I think there's just there's just something to him that like makes his team go to another level. Like you sort of respect the his position as a center. I mean, not that Mitch isn't a force to be reckoned with, but it's just different. Like if you have Hardenstein on the floor, all five guys on the floor can score.
Yeah.
And I think that makes the Knicks offense so scary.
Are
Um,
you concerned at all about a lack of multiple basketballs here? Is that something we should be concerned about?
no, because none of the guys are volume shooters except Brunson, right? I think
Randall.
Randall, sure, but
He's gonna be the one who has to adjust.
he's
And I
probably
think he can't.
but here's the benefit of having Bridges and OG. Both of them are great corner 3-point shooters. Just think about the space, the amount of space Randall's going to be able to operate with. I mean, if listen, as Rand, I mean, the other side of the coin is that you can look at that Randall's days are probably numbered. As much as I want him to stay, between the both of us, I'm the only one who wants him to stay. It's just I don't see a universe where you'll extend that his contract for a lot more money when you have someone like OG potentially on the map to replace him at some point. I don't know. But
Yeah.
that being said, like the let's I'm just gonna enjoy the ride from now, and whatever they decide, I'm willing to trust their plan because they've done such a great job in like putting this together that I'm not gonna doubt it. I'm just gonna trust it. That's my motto. I'm gonna trust it.
Trust the process, right? That's
Well,
us now. OG Anunoby, um, he's looking towards that full max, around $190 million, a little over 40 million a year. It's terrifying of a number because he's just never healthy. The Knicks were virtually unbeatable when he was out there and healthy. And so can you get him at 35? If you can get him at 35, that can make a big difference in
he's not
those
gonna go
luxury
to 35, bro.
payments. We'll see. Remember, the Knicks can offer that extra year that other teams cannot. So does that extra year allow him to go, I want to win. I'll take a tiny, tiny, tiny haircut on the money on the AAV to get that extra year? Or does he go, I'm not taking any less money and now I'm at I wanted a bigger role in Toronto. Now I'm going to have either the same role or maybe slightly smaller with the Knicks. I'm I feel like it's more 60-40 he comes back. I'm with you on Isaiah Hartenstein. Unless free agency just goes out of control the way it did in like 2016 with like the Mozgovs and the Noahs and the Kent Bazemore's, Evan Turner. I think Isaiah comes back. I think, they can make in the offer what was 4 for 72, which is around 18 million a year, maybe a tick over 18 million a year. They don't own his bird rights, as we talked about last week. They only own his partial bird rights, which in nerd terms basically means they can only offer him 175% raise on what he made this year. Because of that, other teams can come over the top and be like, we'll give you 20, 23, 24 million a year. Is someone giving Isaiah Hartenstein $24 million a year? Like, maybe there's just so much cash in the game right now that somebody has to be, you have to spend it on somebody. So it's possible. But if somebody offers him 24 and the Knicks offer him 18 and a chance to start, I think he still takes the Knicks deal. I really do. If you start to get into that 100 million number, right? That's where it becomes, he's got to, he's going to talk about, I got to focus on my family. I can't leave this much money on the table. You're going to hear it. And it's not his fault. Like, I think you understand it, right? So it just really depends on not the Knicks. It depends on these other teams. How crazy is this going to get?
It's so crazy, Steve, but I'm so here for it. I think I'm such a fan of Hardenstein's journey that listen, I want him to stay on the Knicks, but he was someone who was in the G League like 4 or 5 years ago, and look at him now, like a pivotal piece on like a contending team
And I
potentially.
thought he would be a really good rotation player. Like when we got him for like 16 million for over 2 years, I was like, you're gonna love this guy. Like he a passing big man, like what a concept. And but he's way better than I thought he would be. And
Yeah.
obviously, is he as good as he was in the playoffs or was he on a heater? I think he was as good as he showed in the playoffs. I think he got used to the role. He was relatively healthy. He really never got a chance at big minutes like that. So I think I'm all in on him being a legit guy. I would give him the $18 million a year. And if you that's not enough, it's out of your hands. It is. Like there's
It
nothing you can
is.
do. And so you brought up a couple of names before that could replace him. I don't know how realistic those guys are, but why don't you talk about those two guys?
So you have I think it's Gigi Didzik. He was the Magic starting center. He's similar in Isaiah in that he's a passing big, has some like, can do some of the same things as him. He's a veteran. Some of the other names I saw were like Jonas Valanciunas, a big Steve Inman guy. Well, he's always on your fantasy team.
He sure
Uh,
is.
I like him too, but he doesn't really give you the defense that you'd like from a center. But he is obviously an offensive force too. Um, then Mark Williams was
I
another
just
name,
think,
but I don't
sorry,
think
go
the
ahead.
Hornets. And Mark Williams was another name I saw, but I don't think
Me either.
they're going to give up on him.
I mean, the Knicks are never going to do it, but like, could you go into the draft and grab a center? Probably like a backup guy. I don't think they're going to be able to or have any desire to move up and draft one of these like top centers. because they don't have really any interest in teaching a rookie right now. But I would be interested with those two picks they have. Maybe draft a big man, maybe see if you can develop a better looking version of like a Jericho Sims and see if like, okay, Mitch is hurt. Now you're part of the rotation shot blocker, somebody who can maybe hit a free throw. But at the same time, I think they're pretty set with where they are. You add a big man if you lose Hartenstein, but I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, they'll find one. I think. Listen, having Mitch as your plan B is not exactly a bad option either. Um, yeah, I'm pretty confident the Knicks will be okay. It just sucks because Hardenstein felt like a glove with this team.
It's not over yet. I
It's
mean,
not over
we'll
yet. You're
probably
right.
have that
You're right.
answer by the time we do our next show, right? But let's move on. Let's talk about the little draft, NBA draft, Brooklyn, New York. It's not the best draft. We've heard that 10,000 times. Seems like there's a lot of good role players in this draft, which fits a team like the New York Knicks. So, Chris, what players, whether for the Knicks or for other teams, are you keeping an eye on for draft night?
So, so we are recording this on Wednesday, a few hours before the draft. But the guys I really like are Zach Edey, which I know the Knicks are probably not in position to get him. But the guy who I think is a realistic target is Kel'el Ware from Indiana University. He's a center there. He does he has, he's an offensive threat. He's a nice lanky big. I also like Ryan Dunn, who who before this trade I thought would be a nice piece off the bench that could defend, you know, a few minutes if a guy like OG or a guy like Bridges is injured or needs, time. Like Ryan Dunn, like does a lot of the similar things that they do. Um, he's considered one of the best defensive players in the draft. Um, I think those are probably qualities that Tibbs cares about a lot. So anyway, those are guys I really like. I think the best. I'm hearing a lot of buzz about this Sar kid from France. So, you know, like I think the consensus is that it's not a star heavy draft, but it's a draft that maybe has, a bunch of like NBA level players, but maybe not the most talented in the regard that like all-star level, a lot of possible starters. Anyway, who would you like the Knicks to go after, and who do you view as like the top pick or surprising pick?
Yeah, I think in terms of Knicks, I'm going to go with my guy Kevin McCullough Jr. out of Kansas. I think when you're looking for what the Knicks would be interested in, and again, I'd be very surprised if they drafted two rookies tonight. I think they're going to try everything in their power to either draft one or zero rookies. And so I think if they do keep this pick, Kevin McCullough Jr. makes a lot of sense. A 3-and-D wing out of Kansas. He fits what they are looking for, which is an older prospect who is going to be as close to anybody in this draft to being ready for the NBA. Right? He's been in college for a few years now. He's had some tournament experience. He can defend. He can guard multiple positions. He could shoot. He could score. He can go to the rim. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. He reminds me of like a bigger version of Quentin Grimes. And we saw another guy out of Kansas, or had some time at Kansas out of Houston, right?
Right.
And they drafted him around basically the same spot around that 25 mark. And so I think he's a guy who could fit. He's a bigger wing. Again, we're looking for more wings on wings on wings, we said. And then, just maybe go with him and then maybe some kind of the best big man on the board for that other pick. And then in terms of top of the draft, I think my guy Cody Williams is just getting slept on. Brother of Jalen, uh, the good Jalen, right? No disrespect to the other Jalen, but Cody Williams looks like, he looks very similar to his brother. I see a lot of flashes of brilliance there. He shot the ball really well at Colorado. It was in a very short sample size. I think it was like a tick under 2 threes a game, but he showed he can hit them. And in a draft where there's really not a lot of guys, a high upside wing. I don't know why you wouldn't explore taking him with one of the first couple of picks.
Yeah, you know what? It seems like the top of the draft is kind of like a crapshoot. I'm seeing mock drafts with like different guys up top,
Everyone has a different opinion, and it's
and like,
crazy because of these like 10 guys, 4 or 5 of them just by odds are going to be bust. And so
yeah,
it's going to be really fascinating to see how this plays out.
right in a few years. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, I'm very excited to see this draft, and obviously, we're gonna get together and discuss it, on the show, obviously, and then I'm gonna see you tomorrow, and we're gonna be able to recap that and maybe see where Bronny James goes and
Where do you think he goes?
around. I think he's a Laker. I would be surprised if he goes
Yeah.
anywhere else. I hope he goes somewhere else just so he can kind of be his own guy. I mean, even the name Bronny, like you ask him why Bronny, why not LeBron James Jr. and he was trying to be different than his dad. So like literally now he's gonna be on the bench of his dad's team. So I'd
Truth,
rather see him to go somewhere else. Maybe a Phoenix Suns. That's the other team that his agency has said have worked out with him. I think those are the only two teams, the Lakers and the Suns. So I'd rather see him go somewhere like that. That seems at best in flux, where maybe they wind up trading a Kevin Durant in the next year. And they're like, all right, Bronny James, get in that rotation. So I'd rather see something like that.
truth be told, I think just similar to what you said, I think the only team that's really going to draft him would be the Lakers. I think part of me
I
believes that
think other teams would draft him
well,
as a
part of the
prospect. He's a second rounder.
right. I think he probably deserves to go to like a team like for his development, a team like the Spurs for me would be perfect for him.
Yeah, that
Just
would be.
developmental, but I know that's not going to happen. Um, you know, as part of our final thoughts, we were going to talk about Paul George. And I think that's the other piece of this whole other like free agency pie that, you know, was sort of fascinating to us for a little bit. We all thought the Knicks were probably going to go after Paul George, but obviously not anymore. That being said, with Paul George, him to the Warriors is a very interesting like scenario for him. I think the Warriors would still be like a few levels below the Nuggets still, but I think he's like that would probably make them into a top four team in the West.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I don't really get what the Clippers' plan is here. They are one of those teams I kind of was just defending the last few years, and it seemed like it was time to let George and Leonard go and start over. And said they give Leonard this massive extension, and then George, who's been slightly healthier than Leonard, but not by much. And they're like, no, this is where we draw the line. We're not giving you the full max. And he's upset. And does he now he's got a player option for 48 million? Does he pick that up? Does he opt in and then say trade me? Does he opt in and say I'm leaving after this? Does he not do anything with the player option? So I mean, how that goes could change so many different teams, summers and seasons.
And I wonder after the Knicks acquire Bridges that a team like the Sixers will now go full throttle to get someone like Paul George too.
And the reports are saying like the Sixers are just not optimistic about getting him. Is that a bluff? Is like what's happening? Like the
Yeah,
George thing doesn't really make any sense to me. But I think other than the Knicks stuff, that's the thing I'm most watching tonight, this week, July. That's going to be really fascinating to see how it plays out.
agreed. And finally, on a semi-related tangent from the other LA team, the Lakers officially introduced JJ Redick as a coach. Do you have high expectations, or do you think he'll be gone in 2 years? Because that's what I think.
I'm going to put it in a little bit in between. I'm going to say 2.5, 3 years. I think he's a guy who, with patience and leeway, he could be a pretty good coach in this league, but he's never coached before. Now you got to coach LeBron in a city that demands a championship immediately with a front office that hasn't put together great rosters around LeBron and AD the last few years. So how much control does Redick have? Can he help with this draft? Can he help with building a supporting cast around LeBron, or is he more like a LeBron likes you. We want to make him happy. So you're our coach, but we're running the
And
show. So like, how does this play out?
so something to watch for Wednesday night for the draft would be what the Lakers are going to do with the number 17 pick. I think it's 17.
Yes.
If they draft Bronny, it shows me all that it tells me everything I need to know about what the Lakers actually think about their roster. If they hire someone who's going to be an actual piece or trade it, I think, okay, maybe this Lakers front office is actually going to do moves instead of appeasing LeBron, which I know it's like a delicate balance. So we'll see. And I know your boy Bam also got a big contract extension too.
So
Three
I wanted
years.
to bring this up just at the, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure.
Go
No,
ahead.
no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring this up at the end because it's now become a number that is just normal. A 3 year, $166 million extension, which is what, 55 million a year, a little over 55 million a year. And that's just normal now. Like, forget the whole he's a center thing, but he's a star player who's made a couple three all-star teams, all defense teams. He's worth an extension, right? But it's like that's just what he goes for now. And it's just the new normal, and we're gonna have to get used to it.
Yeah, that's an insane number. I think Miami's situation is fascinating because it reports are that it seems that Jimmy Butler and the Heat are having a little bit of a rift.
Yeah.
And now you're just allocating so much money to Bam. How are you going to
Yeah.
improve the roster? I don't know how.
I mean, the money for Bam doesn't kick in for a couple of years. Like this, he's now under contract till 28, 29. But at the
Hmm.
same time, they don't have a lot of draft picks. They don't really have a lot of young players that they could flip that other people would want other than Jaquez, and you need him. So I don't really know how they improve this thing without other than just saying we're trading Jimmy Butler.
I don't know
But
either. But
it's going to be an amazing week. It's going to be amazing 2 weeks, and that's going to do it for us here on the All Podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify and Apple. Enjoy the basketball. This is one of the best times of the year. The drama. There's going to be some star that we're not thinking about right now. That's going to be like, I'm about to get traded. I'm about to go somewhere else, and we can't wait for it.
so excited. Can't wait, Steve.
Bye, everybody.